Not all of an artist's life journey recorded on camera or published on the screen. There are moments that are stored tightly in the heart, only open through fragments of stories that are spoken slowly in the middle of an interview or implied from a small smile in the photos he uploads. For Taehyun, travel is not only about moving from one point to another on the map, but also about how a place leaves a lasting imprint on him. His 5 favorite locations are not just beautiful or famous destinations, but spaces that hold pieces of his life. There is laughter, there is silence, there is longing, and there is a drive to keep going. The story dates back to Taehyun's early years as a teenager, before the world knew him as a confident performer on the big stage. He grew up in a city that never sleeps, where the street lights are always on even in the early hours of the morning, and the sound of strangers' footsteps becomes the background music of his journey home. It was there that the first location was formed, a small city park near his house, where he often sat alone after days of training. For many, the park is just a piece of land with old benches and trees whose often fallen leaves cover the paths. But for Taehyun, the park is where he learns to be at peace with himself. On a wooden bench where the colors began to fade, he wrote the first lyrics that would later become part of his musical journey. It was also there that he learned that tranquility does not have to be found in a secluded place. Sometimes he just needs a little corner that makes him feel safe. His second favorite location comes from a much different experience, a beach he visited with his family on summer vacation. The waves rushing to the shore, the salty smell of the sea settling on the skin, and the orange sky at sunset created an atmosphere that he could hardly forget. On that beach, he felt a simple sense of togetherness, laughing together while eating grilled corn, running around in the sand without caring about cameras or anyone's judgment. It is a reminder that success is meaningless without the people who celebrate it. Years later, every time he returned to the beach, whether the same or different, he always felt again the calm sensation he had experienced in his childhood. The third location is more private, and he rarely tells about in public. A small music studio he found in one corner of Seoul. The studio wasn't fancy, even the wall paint was starting to peel off, but the acoustics were perfect for recording raw sounds full of emotion. It was here that he often spent the night, trying different notes and repeating the lyrics until late. The studio witnessed the birth of many ideas that were later taken to the big stage. For Taehyun, the place was not only a physical space, but also an inner space that connected him to the most honest version of himself. The fourth location was a city abroad that he visited for the first time while on an international tour. The city is colorful, with narrow streets filled with small shops and the smell of coffee emanating from old cafes. He fell in love not only with the beauty of the architecture, but also with the way the people there live calm, relaxed, and as if never in a hurry. He remembers walking alone on the sidewalk, enjoying the afternoon breeze while thinking about how lucky he was to be in a place so far from home, yet still feel welcome. The city gave him a new perspective on the world, and also about himself. The fifth, and perhaps most meaningful, location is not a place that can be found on Google Maps. He called it his home place, a space where he could let go of all his public roles and be himself completely. Sometimes it's his old room, sometimes a lounge room in a dorm with his group mates, or even a window seat in a cafe that few people go to. This place is always moving, but its function is the same: to be a support when he feels tired. Here, he rediscovered his reason to keep going. These 5 locations, despite their different shapes and distances from each other, are connected by the same common thread. They all keep the story that shaped Taehyun into what he is today. In every place, there was a lesson he brought home about solitude, togetherness, hard work, gratitude, and authenticity. Over time, he may find a new favorite location, but the memories imprinted in these 5 places will always be a part of him, like a song that continues to play in his heart, never worn out despite the passage of time. And Owon is really ready to assimilate the life of an artist who has passed through so many intersections. For Taehyun, each stop is not just a pause, but a space where his life changes little by little to form the figure we know today. These 5 locations are not just beautiful places to photograph, but knots in the long thread of life. If pulled straight, the thread will show the emotional journey of a child who is full of dreams, who later transformed into a great artist and is now stepping with a more mature view. The early years of Taehyun's life may not have been full of camera highlights, but that's exactly where his foundation was formed. There was a small garden near his childhood home. Not a grand garden with huge statues, but a simple garden with a few wooden benches, tall trees shading the paths, and the smell of wet earth every time it rained. This is where he often spends the afternoon after school or training. Sometimes he came alone, carrying a shabby notebook whose cover was already full of scribbles. He sat on the far end of the bench, which faced the direction of a small artificial lake. For others, the lake may not be special, but for Taehyun, the glistening water reflecting the light of the afternoon sun is the perfect setting for contemplation. In this place, he wrote his early lyrics not for others to hear, but for himself. A form of silent communication between his heart and the blank pages he fills. One autumn afternoon, he came to the park with a heavy heart. Training that day was a complete failure. His voice was hoarse, his movements were wrong, and he felt like he didn't have enough talent to go any further. Sitting on the bench, he saw the leaves falling one by one. There is a sense of calm that comes slowly, like a whisper that failure is only a small part of a long journey. From that day on, the park was no longer just a green space, but a place of peace with oneself. Beaches have a unique way of storing memories, and for Taehyun, one particular beach in his childhood became an irreplaceable treasure. He visited her for the first time during the summer holidays with his family. The warm white sand, the constant sound of the waves, and the salty smell of the sea lingering on the skin are pieces of memory that he can always call back at any time. That time he was very young, probably did not fully understand the meaning of the holiday other than playing to his heart's content. He ran in the sand, built castles that were later destroyed by the waves, and laughed with his sister and parents. In that moment, the world seemed simple. There is no busy schedule, no pressure to look perfect. There is only sincere togetherness. A few years later, when he was already known to the public, he returned to that beach alone. Summer is almost over, and the beach is not as crowded as it used to be. He walked on the waterline, letting small waves wash his feet. He remembered his childhood and felt that there was something constant in this world. The sea always returned to the shore, like himself who always returned in search of the simple meaning of life. Not all great works are born in magnificent places. For Taehyun, a small studio in a corner of Seoul witnessed the birth of many of his musical ideas. The studio was hidden on the second floor of an old building, flanked by a stationery store and a small cafe. From the outside, there are no noticeable marks. Only a wooden door with paint begins to fade. Inside, the atmosphere is warmly welcoming. Dim yellow lights,